The Cayo Perico Heist is arguably one of the best and easiest ways to make a cool $1 million to $1.5 million every time that you play it, but it can feel a bit overwhelming when you first start out with it. So in this guide, I will show you the easiest and fastest way to complete it. Timestamps below, let's get into it. First off, if you're not familiar with how to get started with the heist, then please check out the video in the description down below so you know how you can get started. With that out the way, let's start off by explaining how the loot works in the Cayo Perico Heist. First, the primary targets. There are a total of 5 primary targets: Bearer Bonds, Systemito Tequila, Ruby Necklace, Pink Diamond, and the Panther statue. Each target has a different weighting to how likely it is to get each target, but it also depends on how recent you've played the Cayo Perico Heist, except for the Panther statue. That is only available during special event weeks that don't seem to happen very often. These are the values and the chances of getting the primary target when you start a fresh heist. If you were to start another heist within 72 real-life hours of finishing a finale, the chances of each of these targets will change drastically to the following percentages. And while this might look ridiculous on paper, the real money with Cayo Perico nowadays is made with the secondary targets. Each secondary target has its own value and weight attached to them, meaning that while you can hold more cash, the value in total is still not going to be as good as filling up your bag with gold, for example. The loot you want to shoot for is always gold, but this requires a second player, as you need to have access to the compound stashes that can only be accessed with the cards that are dropped by the guards. Solo players can grab any of the other loot available, but unfortunately you will only find these types of loot outside of the compound, so you will be required to take a bit of a detour in order to grab it. This guide considers both scenarios, so stick around until the finale section of the video for exactly that. For now, let's focus on prepping the heist itself. When entering the island for the first time, you want to go here and scope out a drainage pipe and the main dock for the most effective way of completing the heist finale. You could also scope out the rest of the island, rest of the exits and secondary targets, but it's not really needed. But if you want to do that anyways, you can check out the guide for that again in the description down below. With the island scoped out, we can start the first setup: gather intel. In this mission, you'll be required to steal a plane and fly to Cayo Perico Island. There's 3 different locations the plane can spawn in, but the mission itself will never change. Simply take out a few enemies, steal the plane, and then just fly away. The Venom isn't a very quick plane, so make sure to build up enough speed on the ground before taking off. I would highly recommend getting the Sparrow that is available for purchase in the Kasaka. While it will cost you a few $1,000,000, it will make your life 10 times easier and faster. If you don't have the money for it, then I'd recommend playing a few Calican Bell farm raids to be able to afford it, or suffer through the first heist without one if you cannot be bothered to do anything else with Cayo Perico. Once you're on the island, you will want to grab a bike that is parked in front of you or in an alternative location here, where you will always spawn if you ever were to mess up. It will keep respawning, so just go back here if you need a new bike. Also, don't worry about guards here. As long as the guard shows up as a white dot on your minimap, you'll be safe to just walk past them without alerting the entire island. Just make sure not to kill them. Once you're on your bike, you will have 2 different options: the safe option and the fast option. The fast option will work as followed. Follow the route that I'm showing you on screen and make sure to keep up enough speed. Then keep an eye on your minimap where you will reach this point here to see where the guard is looking. If the guard is looking towards land, then you are able to take the jump. Pull your bike backwards and wheelie your way to the cliff to launch yourself past all the guards and cameras in an area. Then sneak your way past all the guards again and the cameras by keeping an eye on the vision cones on your minimap. If this sounds a little too risky or out of your skill set, then the safe option is there too. Simply keep an eye on your minimap and follow the route that I'm taking on screen to avoid the cameras and the guards. Make sure that the guard on the guard tower is looking towards the ocean before you make your way through the gates to avoid getting spotted. Once you made your way to the communications tower, you want to look for an electrical box that looks like this. You can find them in a couple of different locations in the area, either in the 2 locations at the bottom floor or on any of the higher up locations of the tower. Once you've found it, you'll be tasked with a math puzzle. Your goal here is to match the numbers shown at the bottom of the screen by linking the numbers to the left with the symbols on the right. These symbols will mean the following. Your goal here is very simple. With the numbers and the symbols in front of you, you have to do some basic maths to get to the target at the top of your screen. You can check the bottom of your screen to see how much you currently have to keep track of how well you're doing. If you fail, that's not a big deal. You'll just keep getting puzzles until you eventually do it. When done successfully, you'll be able to use the app at the bottom right of your phone and use that to get into the cameras. The locations that will be of interest are the basement to scope out the primary target, and all the others that follow until you reach the west gate. You can skip out on scoping out the office, as the loot we are looking for is gold. The reason for that is obviously because these will hold the most amount of value, but once again will require a second player. If you're a solo player, you will want to look for everything else. Art in particular is a great secondary loot target as a solo player. It holds the most value and will fill up your entire bag in just 2 pieces of art. Simply keep using the camera and looking around the rooms to find the secondary targets, and they will be automatically marked on your map when you're playing the finale. Once you scoped out the compound, you can exit the phone app and throw yourself off the tower, or get spotted by a guard to teleport back to the plane and make your way back to Los Santos. A neat way to save yourself a bit of time is by setting your spawn location to the Kasaka and find a new session to effectively teleport back to the Kasaka and immediately start your next prep mission. With the outlet scoped out, we can focus our attention to prepping the heist itself. First, the Apprach vehicle. The long VIN is the best option here simply because the prep mission is much less of a hassle and there really isn't any benefit in using any of the other vehicles, aside from trying something different of course. The long VIN prep simply requires you to go to one of the 3 locations and grab the long VIN that is on the trailer. You will need a truck for this, which you can find in the locations marked on your map as you get close to the police station. Or you could just simply bring one of your own trucks, like the Phantom Wedge for example, or you might happen to find one on the street. Either of the options will work. In the truck, you shouldn't have to worry too much about getting shot by the cops. The only real dangerous location I would say is the one in La Mesa, but if you keep an eye on your health and you use snacks regularly, then you should be totally fine. When you got the long VIN, you can make your way here. You will have to lose the cops in the meantime, but don't worry about that, as we can just simply take the shortcut through the gate, park the truck here, get out, blow ourselves up, and then run back to the truck again. Mission complete. The next setup depends on what loot you will get. You will either have to do the safe code prep if your primary target is the bearer bonds, or the plasma cutter prep for all the other primary targets. Let's start off with the safe code prep. In this, you'll simply have to make your way to the casino, find a room with the 2 guards in front of it, get in the room and find the head of security to steal the code. You can find the head of security in 3 different locations in this room, which I will show in the footage. Once you found him and you took him out, search his body for the code and then leave the casino again. The plasma cutter mission is a little bit different, but arguably is the easier one of the 2. All you need to do is go to the safe house, open up your phone, take a picture and go out. You don't even need to point it at the objective, it's really that simple. Simply take a picture of the entire room and the game will let you continue. Then you go to another location, take out a couple of enemies, which can easily be done by just locking onto them with a sparrow, grab the plasma cutter and then go back to the Kasaka. In the Fingerprint Cloner prep mission, you're tasked to go to the warehouse and take out a bunch of enemies, but the best part is, you can just simply stand here and shoot an RPG or any other explosive and you can take out the entire room in one quick swoop. Or you can also just use the assault shotgun if you don't feel like playing a risky game here. Regardless of your choice, afterwards you can hack the laptop, make your way to the archive, and at the very end of the room, on either of these desks, you can find the Fingerprint Cloner. Bring that back to the Kasaka and you're done. A pro tip is to request your Kasaka again to have it spawn closer to you to save yourself a little bit of time if it's far away from you. This is particularly useful in the Vespucci location. Now it's time to grab the cutting torch, which once again is a very straightforward mission that sadly is going to come down to a little bit of RNG. You'll be tasked to go to one of the 3 construction sites and find the cutting torch in one of the boxes laying around in the area. You can find these boxes by looking for the green arrow that is hovering above them. The box you're looking for will have a blue cutting torch in there and will allow you to interact with said box. Once you picked it up, you can then make your way back to Kasaka to do the final prep mission, which is the weapon loadout. First up, the weapon loadout you want to pick is the Aggressor loadout. This has an assault shotgun, which will make the finale far easier, especially to take out the minigun enemy that we'll touch on later. There are 2 variations of the weapon loadout prep mission, the Meriwether HQ and the office building. If you're tasked to go to the Meriwether HQ, find a new session and start the mission again. They're just not worth your time. Instead, wait until you get one of these 3 building names and make your way there. Land on a roof with your Sparrow if you have one and enter the office. From there you just simply want to take out all the enemies and then make your way to the weapons stash. After interacting with it and completing the hacking minigame on the laptop, you can then exit through the elevator that you came from. Do pay attention which button you press to get on the roof. If you're like me and your muscle memory from like 11 years of playing the game, pressing right D-pad becomes natural. However, if you do that, you're on the ground floor going to get shot to death, so press left on your D-pad instead. As discussed before, the approach to the finale will change on whether you will play this solo or with another player. In the interest of covering both, I will go over both scenarios, starting with arguably the worst way of playing the heist nowadays. Solo. When you start the heist, go to the main docks and pick up the secondary loot first. In this scenario, we'll be keeping an eye on your minimap while we're making our way to the first location. Make sure to take out the camera and the guard behind the shed to avoid getting detected. But before you grab the loot, make sure to also take out the guard that is driving in the car. The reason for this is because the Cayo Perico Heist is completely bug-free and has no issues whatsoever with guards spotting you through walls from nothing whatsoever. From there, you want to make your way to the next guard to take out and then move to the second location with the secondary loot. Once again, before you grab the loot, you want to pay attention to the tower and take out the guard as well as the camera, as once again, Cayo Perico is a bug-free heist that can never spot you through any walls whatsoever. After you've grabbed the loot, you want to grab the car and follow the route that I'm taking in the footage towards the compound. Once there, take out the guards and the camera and look for the codes that will be dropping from one of the guards that you took out. This will allow you to enter the compound through the side entrance. Every single guard that is around the compound has a chance of dropping these codes, so if you got unlucky like me in the footage that I'm showing you now, you might have to take a little while. Having said that, I will show you every single location of the guards in the area so you can find the codes if you are getting just as unlucky as I was. For solo players, when you're inside, you want to follow the route that I'm taking and take out the guard by smacking him with your gun to avoid detection. Then, when the minigun heavy is outside of the camera's vision cone, you can unload the assault shotgun into him and take him out and prevent him from roaming around the compound and detect bodies. From there, you want to continue like I am and make your way to the office. Loot the office safe for an additional $50,000 to $99,000 and then make your way back down again. At this point you should have the gate key with you, as it generally seems to be dropping from one of the guards you've taken out so far. If not, keep taking out enemies until you do, or you can use a fingerprint scanner in the office instead to make your way to the primary target. With the gate keys in your hand, you want to make your way to the basement and hack the fingerprint scanner, which is easily solved by putting the first 3 fingerprints to the smallest fingerprint and then leave the very first fingerprint as it is, move the second fingerprint to the right once and move the third fingerprint to the right twice. And with the 4th and final fingerprint you can just keep on scrolling until you see it automatically complete. If your loot is the bearer of bonds, Pavel will send you the safe code. Memorize it and then unlock the vault with it. If your loot is any of the other targets, you will use the plasma cutter. The most effective way of using this is to almost overheat it and then let it drain all the way down again. Rinse and repeat until your character grabs the loot. Then you want to make your way out of the compound by exiting the other gate door and jump this wall to spare yourself a bunch of hassle. The trick is to be to the left of this pillar and then press the jump button while facing the wall. From there you want to take out the 2 guards and exit the compound. Once outside, you want to take out the guard in front of you, steal his bike and make your way in the direction that I'm going. Take a nice big jump into the ocean and keep swimming in a westbound direction until your map disappears. For the 2-player scenario, you want to go into this direction, take out the 2 guards that have a chance to drop the keycards, move on to this guard, smack him, and then wait for the minigun heavy to be out of the camera's vision cone and unload your assault shotgun into him. From there you want to make your way to the office like I am in the footage, loot the office safe for an additional $50,000 to $99,000 and then make your way back down again. Before you grab the primary target, you want to go through the compound and pick up your secondary targets. Make sure to use your map to easily identify where the secondary loot is located and plan your route accordingly. The reason we do the secondary loot first is because there will be less guards roaming around and the chances of any of the new guards spotting any of the dead guards will be reduced significantly. Having said that, if you prefer to get the primary target first, that's fine too. If you have 3 stacks of gold, you'll be able to fill up both of your bags and make the most amount of money. If not, simply go down the list of the most valuable stuff. Just make sure that you never leave the compound empty-handed. With the gate keys in your hand, you want to make your way to the basement and hack the fingerprint scanner, which is easily solved by putting the first 3 fingerprints to the smallest fingerprint and then leave the very first fingerprint as it is, move the second fingerprint to the right once and move the third fingerprint to the right twice. And with the 4th and final fingerprint you can just keep on scrolling until you see it automatically complete. If your loot is the bearer of bonds, Pavel will send you the safe code. Memorize it and then unlock the vault with it. If your loot is any of the other targets, you will use the plasma cutter. The most effective way of using this is to almost overheat it and then let it drain all the way down again. Rinse and repeat until your character grabs the loot. Then you want to make your way out of the compound by exiting the other gate door and jump this wall to spare yourself a bunch of hassle. The trick is to be to the left of this pillar and then press the jump button while facing the wall. From there, you want to take out the 2 guards and exit the compound. Once outside, you want to take out the guard in front of you and steal his bike. And if you feel like being a good teammate, you can also help them by taking out the guards near the gate to help them to a bike as well. When both of you have a bike, you want to make your way towards the ocean by taking a nice big jump and swim your way to the exit zone. Speaking of which, here's a fun screenshot of the Cayo Perico Heist finale boundaries. If you're outside of this, the heist will finish. Handy if you ever wonder why it didn't trigger the end. Personally, I would argue that the best way to play the Cayo Perico Heist nowadays is definitely with a teammate, as the difference in how much money you make is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And while I understand that heist randoms don't exactly have a good reputation, I made an entire series out of it, for crying out loud. But with the route and the strategies that I've shown in this guide, you can hard carry randoms as long as they're not being their usual selves. Generally speaking, I've been very successful with these strategies, so I hope you will too. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, consider becoming a member like Chloe, GTA Plus and Notorious Jam, and I'll see you all later.